poor girl texted a stranger for baby formula, not knowing he was the CEO. She just needed baby formula. One desperate message, sent to the wrong number, landed in the hands of a billionaire CEO. What started as a simple act of kindness spiraled into a $1 million scandal, a dangerous cover-up, and a love no one saw coming. Before we continue, if you enjoy touching and inspiring stories like this one, make sure to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Now, let's get back to the story. The text was simple. No punctuation, barely a sentence. "Hi, I saw the ad. Can you help me? I need formula for my baby." Ethan Hayes stared at the message, confused. It had landed in the inbox of the business number linked to his company's donation page. An initiative run mostly for PR, something he rarely touched. But tonight, something about that message kept his finger hovering over the screen. There was no greeting, no name, no details, just raw, exposed need. It didn't read like someone asking for a favor. It read like a cry. Somewhere across the city, in a one-bedroom apartment that barely held together, 23-year-old Lily Carter didn't know she'd just texted a billionaire. She didn't care, honestly. She'd seen the number under a charity post someone shared online, something about helping families during hard times. It was a long shot, she knew that, but her son hadn't had a full bottle in 2 days. She'd already pawned her last piece of jewelry, her grandmother's locket. Pride didn't mean much when your baby was hungry. Ethan debated deleting the message. He had no time for personal charity cases. He ran one of the most successful logistics companies on the East Coast, had meetings lined up from dawn to midnight, and a board to answer to. But still, he didn't delete it. He clicked reply instead. "Where are you located?" Lily blinked at the response. She hadn't expected one. Not so fast. Maybe not ever. Her hands trembled as she typed her address, feeling both relief and embarrassment tighten around her chest. She added, "I can pick it up. I just don't have gas money right now." He read it twice. There was no manipulation in those words. Just a quiet, humbling honesty. Ethan surprised himself. He called his driver. "Deliver a box of baby formula. Include wipes, diapers, whatever's standard. Deliver it to this address tonight. And don't say where it's from." It was done within an hour. No questions asked. Ethan didn't think about it again, not until 2 days later when a second text arrived. "I just wanted to say thank you. You saved us that night." And somehow, that did stay with him. For Lily, the mystery of the stranger only grew. She had half hoped it was someone local, maybe a community worker, maybe a mom. But the driver had been in a black car, like something out of a movie. And the box had everything, not just formula, but wipes, soaps, even a small teddy bear. No name, no note, just quiet kindness. She didn't plan to message again, but life didn't give her that luxury. When her paycheck from the diner got delayed and the store hiked the price of formula, she caved and wrote again. "I'm sorry to bother you. Things are tight again. Just asking if you still help?" Ethan read it while waiting for a delayed flight. It had been a brutal week. Shareholders were panicking, his assistant quit, and he hadn't eaten since breakfast. But her message, it pulled him back from all that, made him feel human again. "Yes," he typed back. A pattern formed, slowly, quietly. Every few days a message would come, not always asking, sometimes just thanking, sometimes just sharing. He smiled today, first time in a while. He held my finger and wouldn't let go. "I think he knows I'm tired. I used to think I was strong. Now I just feel like glass." Ethan never asked for more. He replied in short lines, never signing his name, but his replies started changing too. "You're stronger than you think. He's lucky to have you. Glass bends before it breaks." He wasn't sure why he kept replying, or why he'd even saved her number under a simple name, L. She didn't know he was the CEO of Hayes Freight and Logistics. She didn't know her messages were reaching the hands of a man worth millions. and he wasn't ready to tell her. Something about the honesty in her words, in her world, felt too rare, too sacred. Then came the day it stopped. No text, no thank you, no update. 2 days passed, then 3. He tried to brush it off. Maybe she'd found help elsewhere. Maybe she didn't need him anymore. But the silence hit harder than he expected. It wasn't until the 5th day that something inside him snapped. He found himself typing a message he never thought he would. "Hey, just checking if you're okay." It was 2 a.m. He didn't expect an answer. But 5 minutes later, it came. "I wasn't going to ask again, but I haven't eaten in 2 days. My son's sick. I can't afford the ER." Ethan's heart dropped. He didn't think. He acted. "I'm coming." He didn't send a driver this time. He got behind the wheel himself, something he hadn't done in months. With nothing but an address and a GPS pin, he drove through the city under a sky heavy with clouds. The street was quiet, run down. He parked near a flickering lamppost and looked up at the peeling building. He didn't belong here, not with his pressed shirt and $1,000 shoes, but none of that mattered when he climbed the stairs and knocked. The door opened slowly, and that was the moment Ethan Hayes saw her for the first time. Lily hadn't expected him to come in person. When she opened the door that night, barefoot and holding her feverish baby against her chest, her heart stumbled. The man standing there wasn't what she imagined. He looked out of place, tall, clean-cut, wearing a dark coat that probably cost more than her rent. But his eyes weren't cold. They were focused, kind, and maybe just as tired as hers. "I brought some things," he said simply, holding up a brown paper bag that couldn't possibly fit everything she needed. But somehow it did. She didn't ask questions. She stepped aside. He didn't stay long, just long enough to make sure she had what she needed: fever meds, food, more formula than she'd seen in weeks. Before he left, Lily finally found her voice. "You never told me your name." He hesitated. "It's Ethan." She smiled weakly. "Thank you, Ethan." The next day, Ethan sat in his glass-walled office on the 35th floor of Hayes Global and couldn't concentrate. The numbers on his screen blurred. Meetings passed like noise. All he could think about was that small, dim apartment, and the woman who'd thanked him like he'd saved her entire world. He didn't understand why it stayed with him. He'd helped people before, signed checks, built shelters, funded scholarships. But this felt different. She was different. Later that week, when he met with Zoe, the director of community outreach, an idea formed. "We've got a temp opening in the donations department, right?" he asked casually. Zoe raised a brow. "We do. Why?" "I'd like you to consider someone. She's a single mom, sharp, good with people. I think she could use a shot." Zoe nodded. "Send me her info." He already had her number. Lily stared at the text for a long time. "Hi, it's Ethan. There's a short-term job open at my company. Something small but steady pay. You interested?" She read it 3 times. Part of her wanted to say no. It felt too good to be true. But rent was coming up, and her pantry was still thin. And he hadn't asked her for anything in return. Not once. She replied, "Yes, thank you. I don't know what to say." "Just say you'll show up Monday at 9. Hayes Global was nothing like the world she knew. Glass elevators, marble floors, people who walked like they had purpose sewn into their shoes. Lily felt like she was floating, or maybe drowning, in a sea of confidence. But the receptionist was kind, and Zoe, the woman who greeted her, had warm eyes and a coffee in hand. "You're Lily? Welcome. You'll be helping with donation records, emails, community responses. We'll train you." Ethan said, "You're a quick learner." She blinked. "He did?" Zoe smiled. "He doesn't usually get involved with new temps. You must have made an impression." Lily wasn't sure how to feel about that. Days passed, then weeks. She settled in. The work was simple but purposeful. She liked organizing things, answering questions from families who reminded her of herself. And she liked the routine, the stability, the ability to breathe even if only for a little while. She didn't see Ethan, not in person at least, but she saw his name everywhere, on the company letterheads, on the hallway plaques, on the signature at the bottom of the mass emails she now helped send. She began to understand. He was the Ethan Hayes, the one behind the buildings, the brand, the reason she was here. And that realization shook her. One Friday afternoon, while updating entries from a paper trail of donations, Lily noticed something odd. There were 2 receipts for the same family, same name, same date, same amount, but from different budgets. She frowned. Probably just a filing error. But then she found another, and another, always under the same approval initials. TS. She asked Zoe casually about it. TS? That's Todd, VP of Finance. Lily nodded slowly, hiding the tightening in her chest. She didn't say anything else. But something didn't sit right. The next week, the strange entries kept piling up. Duplicates. Numbers that didn't match. Donation amounts listed that never reached the families in the system. She tried to ignore it. This wasn't her business. She was temporary. A nobody. But then she overheard a phone call in the hallway. Todd's voice. Sharp. Urgent. I don't care if she's new. Shut it down. Clean it up. Nobody needs to know. Lily froze in her chair. He wasn't talking about a vendor. He was talking about her. That night, she went home shaking. She didn't know what to do. She didn't want to lose this job. But something told her she'd stumbled into something much bigger than a clerical mistake. She'd worked around enough shady managers in the past to know the tone of a cover-up. She considered not saying anything, but then she thought of Ethan and the way he'd shown up that night, with his eyes full of concern and hands full of help. That man didn't seem like someone who'd want his name tied to this. So she made a choice. She texted him, "Can we talk?" Ethan was in the middle of a dinner meeting when the message lit up on his phone. He hadn't heard from her in days, weeks, not since she started at the company. Something in his gut twisted. "Are you okay?" she replied quickly. "Not sure. I think something's wrong at your company, and I think I wasn't supposed to see it." He stood up from the table without excusing himself. It was nearly midnight when Ethan pulled up outside Lily's apartment again. He didn't bother with a driver. He didn't even bring a coat. She opened the door before he could knock, like she'd been waiting with her ear pressed to the wood. "I'm sorry," she said immediately, almost whispering. "I didn't know who else to tell." Ethan stepped inside, eyes scanning her face. She looked exhausted, but there was a fire behind that exhaustion now. A mix of fear and quiet defiance. He'd seen it before, in boardrooms and courtroom battles, but it looked heavier on her, more personal. "What did you find?" he asked. She handed him a folder. He looked down at it, then back up. "You printed it?" "I didn't want it to get erased." He sat at her tiny kitchen table, flipping through the documents she'd gathered. Receipts, duplicated donations, mismatched numbers, missing fund records, all signed off by the same person. Todd Sutherland. Ethan's voice dropped low. "He's been with the company since my father ran it." Lily folded her arms. "I didn't know if you already knew, but..." Something felt wrong. He looked at her, silent for a long moment. "You could have just stayed quiet." "I know. You're a temp. You don't owe the company anything." "I know that too. Then why risk it?" She met his eyes without flinching. "Because I care where the money goes and because you cared about me." Ethan drove back to his condo with the folder clutched like a grenade. His mind was racing, not just with betrayal, but with something heavier. Guilt. He'd built a company meant to help people, to support families like hers. But while he was busy playing savior from the shadows, someone inside had been bleeding the system dry. He didn't sleep that night. Instead, he called an emergency audit. On Monday, the office was quiet. Too quiet. People whispered in corners. Eyes followed Lily when she walked through the halls. No one said it, but she felt it. They knew she was the reason something had shifted. By noon, Todd was called into a private meeting. By 2 p.m., he was escorted out of the building. Lily stood by the window in the break room when Zoe approached. "You okay?" Zoe asked gently. Lily nodded. "I didn't mean for it to get that big." Zoe gave a small smile. "Sometimes doing the right thing makes things messy, but it also makes them better." Then she added, "Ethan's looking for you, by the way." She found him in his office, not behind the desk, but by the window, looking out over the skyline like he needed air, but couldn't leave. When he saw her, he smiled, but it was a tired, grateful kind of smile. "It's over," he said. "He confessed to moving over $500,000 in false claims. We never would have caught it without you." Lily stepped in slowly. "I didn't do it for the company. I did it because it didn't feel right." "I know. That's what makes you rare." There was a beat of silence between them. Then he added, "I want to offer you a full-time position." She blinked. "What?" "You're sharp. You see people. You see things others miss. And clearly, you've got guts." Lily stared at him, unsure whether to laugh or cry. "Are you serious?" "As a heart attack." Her lips parted. To say thank you, to ask why, to say she wasn't sure, but nothing came out. Then he said softly, "Lily, you don't have to say yes now, but I want you to know, you belong here." That night, after she tucked her baby in and sat alone on her old, worn couch, Lily stared at her phone, reading Ethan's last message again. "You belong here." She hadn't heard words like that in a long time, maybe ever. Her whole life she'd felt like she was standing outside, face pressed against the glass of a world she didn't fit in. But now, someone had opened a door, and not just anyone. Him. Over the next few weeks, things began to change, slowly but deeply. She accepted the position, HR coordinator for the donation wing. The pay wasn't astronomical, but it was enough to move to a better apartment, enough to get her daughter into daycare, enough to buy groceries without checking her bank balance 3 times. But it wasn't just the stability. It was Ethan. He didn't treat her like a case. He didn't hover or hand her favors, but he checked in, smiled when she passed him in the hall, invited her to small meetings, and every so often, they'd text again, just like before. Only now it felt different, more real, more close. One night, she stayed late, organizing old files for an audit. The office was empty, quiet, except for the hum of lights and the occasional creak of the elevator. She didn't notice Ethan standing at the doorway until he cleared his throat gently. "You really should go home sometime," he said. She turned, laughing under her breath. "Says the man who never leaves." He smiled, stepped inside. "Touché." There was a pause, the kind that feels like it's holding something. Then he asked, "Can I walk you out?" The walk to the garage was slow, unhurried. They didn't talk much, but they didn't need to. Something about the silence felt comfortable. Before she got into her car, Ethan turned to her. "I'm not great at this," he said, voice quieter now. "But I've been thinking about you, about us." Lily looked at him, really looked, and saw past the power suits and the CEO title. She saw the man who drove across the city at 2 a.m. for a sick baby. The man who believed her when no one else even listened. "I think about you too," she said just as softly. He took a step closer. But before anything else could happen, before a touch, a kiss, a confession, Ethan's phone buzzed. He checked the screen and his expression darkened. "What is it?" Lily asked. He swallowed hard. "There's a reporter asking questions about the audit, and somehow they know your name." Lily's stomach dropped. "Wait, what? Why would a reporter know my name?" Ethan's jaw was tight as he typed something rapidly into his phone. The screen cast a pale glow over his face in the dim garage. He looked furious, but not at her. "I don't know," he said, voice low and clipped. "But someone leaked the audit. They mentioned a temporary employee who uncovered discrepancies in donation funds." "That's you." Lily stepped back, her mind reeling. I didn't talk to anyone. I believe you. But people won't. I'm just... She stopped herself. You're not just anything, Ethan said, meeting her eyes. You did the right thing, but this complicates everything. By morning, it was online. A clickbait headline on a news site. CEO's company rocked by donation scandal. Whistleblower was temp hire. Lily stared at the article on her cracked phone screen from the corner of the break room, her hands trembling. They'd even blurred out her picture, but the damage was done. Her name was in the comments. Her story was being twisted. Some people calling her a hero, others calling her an opportunist. People in the office barely looked at her now. The ones who used to smile passed her in silence. The whispers returned, this time sharper. Zoe pulled her aside mid-morning. You okay? She asked softly. I didn't want this, Lily said. I never wanted to be seen. Zoe nodded, squeezing her shoulder. Being right doesn't always come with applause, but it still matters. Ethan was already in crisis mode. PR teams, legal calls, a boardroom filled with advisors barking solutions. But none of it mattered more to him than Lily. That afternoon, he stepped out of a meeting just to find her. She was in the hallway, about to leave early, baby bag slung over one shoulder, exhaustion and fear written all over her. Come with me, he said gently. She hesitated. Please. His office was quieter than usual. The glass walls were now frosted. Privacy mode. No one could see them. It was just the two of them again, like when all this started. I'm going to get ahead of this, he told her. I'm going to clear your name, let people know the audit was internal, that you did everything right. I don't want the spotlight, Ethan. I know. She swallowed hard. But now I'm in it. He walked closer, slowly. I can make this go away. Lily looked at him, eyes burning. You already did more than you had to. Maybe you should just cut me loose. I'm bad PR now. His voice was low, fierce. Lily, I'm not cutting you loose. That night, the press released a follow-up article. This one had a quote from Ethan directly. What happened inside our charity wing was a failure of oversight, my oversight. But it was also a wake-up call. I stand behind the employee who brought it to light. She didn't leak it. She protected this company more than most executives ever did. No one knew her name this time. No one had to. Ethan had just told the world exactly whose side he was on. Still, the tension didn't fade overnight. Every glance at the office felt loaded. Every silence stretched too long. That Friday, Ethan stopped by Lily's desk. He didn't speak like a CEO. He didn't order or suggest. He just stood there, hands in his pockets. You doing anything tonight? Lily blinked. Besides hiding under a blanket and eating cereal for dinner? He grinned. Let me make that better. She didn't expect the place he took her to be so normal. Not a five-star restaurant or a hotel rooftop. Just a small Italian spot tucked away in a quiet neighborhood. Warm lighting, old jazz playing, staff who knew Ethan by name. And not because he was rich, but because he came here often enough to be real. I like places where I don't have to be Ethan Hayes, he said, reading her thoughts. Lily smiled. I like places like that too. Dinner was slow, easy. No reporters, no board members, no tension. Just two people learning how to breathe again. Outside, the air was crisp. They stood by her car, the night wrapped around them like a secret. I never thought my life would turn like this, she said softly. Me neither, Ethan replied, but I'm glad it did. He looked at her like he was still figuring out how someone like her existed, how someone could carry so much weight and still smile with so much softness. Lily stepped forward. I should be scared. Are you? She shook her head. No. He leaned in, slowly, not pushing, just waiting. When their lips met, it wasn't fireworks or dramatic music. It was quiet, honest, a moment earned, not forced. It tasted like hope. After that night, things changed again. but differently this time. The company recovered quickly. Ethan's transparency had earned public trust. Donations came back. A few people left. A few others apologized to Lily, and she kept her job. Only now it came with her own office. A small one, but hers. She started receiving emails directly from clients, from families she'd helped connect with aid. Her desk had a picture of her daughter now, smiling with a spoon full of yogurt. Ethan? He showed up more often, not just in meetings, but with coffee. And questions like, "How's daycare going? Want to grab lunch? Can I walk you home?" Then came the gala, an annual charity event hosted by Hayes Global. Big names, cameras, fancy dresses. Lily almost didn't go. She wasn't used to the spotlight. But Ethan sent her a message that morning. "Come, don't hide from what you helped build." So she went, hair pulled up, simple navy dress borrowed from Zoe. And the moment she stepped into the ballroom, everything stilled. Because Ethan was already there, waiting for her at the bottom of the stairs, eyes fixed only on her. He crossed the room like the rest of the crowd didn't exist. "You look," he exhaled, "braver than anyone I know." And when he took her hand in front of everyone, she didn't pull away. But as the music played and cameras flashed, neither of them noticed a man standing near the bar, holding his phone low, eyes watching them both with quiet calculation. On his screen, a message blinked. "Confirmed. The CEO's girl is the one who found the leak. Shall we proceed?" He typed back just one word. "Yes." Lily didn't notice the man following her. Not at first. Her days were packed with reports, calls, daycare drop-offs, and evenings spent replaying conversations with Ethan in her head. For the first time in years, her life had rhythm, not chaos. But just under the surface, something dark had started to move. It began subtly. A strange call that hung up as soon as she answered. A parked car idling near her building longer than it should. Her apartment door slightly ajar, even though she swore she'd locked it. She chalked it up to anxiety, to stress, to maybe being too careful. But then she found the envelope. No name, no stamp. Just a thick manila folder slipped under her apartment door late one night. Inside, photocopies of emails, photocopies, contracts, bank statements, and a note written in blocky, rushed handwriting. "You were right, but it goes deeper. Meet me tomorrow, 9 p.m., Pier 17. She didn't tell Ethan, not yet. He was already stretched thin, working late, doing press rounds, reorganizing his executive team. She'd never seen him this tense before, like something was clawing behind his calm exterior. Instead, she stared at the folder in silence. It confirmed everything she suspected, but also revealed names she hadn't seen before. A tangled web of donations rerouted to offshore accounts, charities that didn't exist, and signatures that looked forged, including one that looked a lot like Ethan's. The next day at work, she barely heard anything in the morning meetings. Ethan noticed. After everyone left, he lingered behind and asked, "You okay?" Lily nodded too quickly. "Just tired. My daughter's teething again." He gave a small smile. Poor thing. But the look in his eyes lingered, like he knew there was more she wasn't saying. "I was thinking," he added, "after this quarter ends, maybe we take a weekend. Just us." She blinked. "A weekend?" He shrugged, suddenly shy for a man who commanded boardrooms. "We've both earned a break." Lily's heart jumped, but she smiled. "Yeah, I'd like that." But even as she said it, her mind was still on the folder in her bag. That night she stood at Pier 17, jacket wrapped tight against the wind, folder clutched to her side. She almost turned back 5 times, but then a figure appeared from the shadows. Tall, nervous, glancing over his shoulder. "Lily?" he asked quietly. She nodded. "Who are you?" "My name's Aaron. I worked in finance. Intern contract. 6 months ago I saw some things. Sent an anonymous tip and then nothing. They buried it. Fired me quietly. No one would listen." She looked at him, heart pounding. "Why me?" Because you're the only one who didn't run. You made them look. And because I think someone's setting Ethan up." Lily's breath caught. "What?" Aaron pulled out his own set of documents. There are forged signatures under his name, transactions routed through ghost vendors. On paper, it looks like he signed off on everything. "But he didn't," Lily said firmly. "I believe that. But whoever's behind this is smart, and now that the spotlight's on him, they're going to push the story in that direction. You're close to him. That makes you a liability." A sudden noise behind them. A footstep. A shuffle. Aaron froze. "I shouldn't have come here." He shoved the folder into her hands. "Keep it safe. If anything happens to me, give it to the press." Then he turned and disappeared into the dark. Lily rushed home, heart hammering. She double-locked the door, pulled the curtains, and placed the folder inside a backpack, burying it beneath her baby's extra clothes. Her phone buzzed. "Ethan, thinking about you. Hope you got some sleep tonight." She stared at the screen, fingers hovering, then replied, "You too. Be safe." She didn't sleep at all. The next morning, Aaron's face was on the news. Former Hayes intern found dead near docks, suspected overdose. Lily dropped her coffee. The mug shattered on the kitchen floor. It was staged. She knew it, felt it in her bones. Aaron was scared when he left her. He wasn't suicidal. He wasn't a drug user. He was silenced. And now she was next. She went to work pretending everything was normal. Smiled when Zoe handed her reports, nodded through HR meetings. But she didn't trust the walls anymore, didn't trust the elevators, or even the building. She needed to talk to Ethan, tell him everything. But every time she opened her mouth, someone walked in. A phone rang. The moment slipped away. Until that evening, she found him alone on the rooftop, his thinking place, city lights painting gold across his face. He turned as she stepped into the breeze. "Hey," he said softly. She didn't wait. "There's something I have to tell you, and it's going to sound insane." He listened. Every word, never interrupting, face unreadable. When she was done, she handed him the folder. His fingers trembled slightly as he flipped through the papers. His voice, when he finally spoke, was raw. "I knew there were problems. I didn't know it went this deep." Lily looked at him. "Someone's setting you up, Ethan, and now they know I'm in the way." He didn't speak for a moment, just exhaled, deeply. "Then we bring it into the light," he said finally. "Together." That night, they didn't go home. Not really. They sat in her living room, papers spread out across the table, baby monitor glowing faintly beside them. They formed a plan: secure the documents, back them up, trace the fake vendors, contact the one reporter Ethan still trusted from his early days, someone with integrity, someone who could run the story right. But as the night deepened and the plan took shape, something unspoken passed between them. A closeness born not of attraction, but of trust, of shared fear, of having no one else to rely on but each other. At one point, Lily's head rested on his shoulder, and he didn't move, just sat there, holding her hand, like an anchor in a storm. But outside, just down the street, a black car idled in silence. Inside, a phone buzzed. A photo opened. Lily, Ethan, together in the apartment window. A voice on the other end. "They're working together. Move now!" The break-in came at 3:12 a.m. Lily jolted awake to the sound of shattering glass. Her first instinct was her daughter. She ran to the crib, scooping her up just as the front door was kicked open. "Go!" Ethan shouted, already halfway to her. "Get in the bedroom! Lock it!" She didn't hesitate. She bolted, heart pounding, baby clutched tight against her chest. She locked the door and backed into the corner, whispering soft, shaking words to calm the child now crying in her arms. From the other side of the door, she heard movement, a crash, a struggle, someone grunting. Then, silence. Her hands trembled on the doorknob. She waited 5 more agonizing seconds before pulling it open. Ethan stood there, blood on his lip, breathing hard. A man lay unconscious near the front door. Lily stared, wide-eyed. "Ethan!" "I'm okay," he said, voice hoarse. "He's not going to hurt you. I called the cops." She looked down at the man. Black hoodie, gloves, no ID. "Someone sent him," she whispered. "I know." At the station, statements were given. Questions were asked. The intruder wouldn't talk. No fingerprints, no wallet, no answers. But the message was clear. Back off. When they were finally released, the sky was just beginning to lighten, turning the city pale gray. Ethan looked at Lily in the back of the cab, her baby asleep in her lap, head resting against the window. She looked like she hadn't slept in a century, but her arms were still wrapped protectively around her child. She hadn't let go once. He'd never admired anyone more in his life. They stayed in one of Ethan's corporate apartments after that. Top floor, secure elevator, guards outside. Lily didn't argue. She was too tired to fight him on it, and too scared to be alone. Zoe took a leave of absence from work and offered to stay with the baby during the day, so Lily and Ethan could focus on the documents. And they did. Every spare hour, every late night, every coffee-soaked morning, they worked. Digging, tracing, cross-checking files. Ethan had his legal team quietly pulling files from old contracts. Lily had Erin's notes, her own growing file, and her memory, sharp and relentless. The deeper they dug, the clearer the picture became. The corruption went all the way to the top of the finance division. Not just Todd. There were others, names they knew. People Ethan had once trusted. People who had now put Lily in danger. But somewhere in the chaos, their relationship shifted from survival to something more steady, more real. One night, after hours of staring at spreadsheets, Ethan rubbed his eyes and leaned back on the couch. "You know," he said, "before all this, I thought I was living." Lily looked up from her laptop. "And now?" "Now I think I was just managing. Breathing in, breathing out, collecting headlines. But I wasn't here. Not like this." Lily smiled, tired but sincere. "It's strange. I feel more alive now, even with everything happening, than I did in the last 3 years. He turned to her. "You've changed me." Her breath caught. "I didn't mean to," she whispered. "I'm glad you did." He reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. The final piece came from the unlikeliest source. A single financial file, buried in an old internal server, flagged by a junior IT employee named Miguel, who used to crush on Lily from a distance. He sent it anonymously, but Ethan tracked the file's IP. It was enough to prove Ethan's name had been forged. Enough to tie the fraudulent accounts to a shell company linked directly to the acting CFO, Russell King. Ethan's jaw clenched when he saw the name. Russell had been his father's advisor, a man who helped build the empire, and quietly started hollowing it out. "Looks like Russell was the architect," Lily said quietly. Ethan didn't respond at first. Then, "He's going to come after us. And this time, he won't send someone to scare you." They didn't go to the police. Not yet. They went to Nora Grant, the investigative journalist Ethan had trusted in his early career. She was smart, ruthless, and honest, and she owed Ethan a favor. Nora took one look at the evidence and said, "This is explosive." She promised a full piece, detailed, sourced, careful. It would take a few days, but once it went live, there'd be no stopping the fallout. "You'll both be in the center of it," she warned. "Ready for that?" Lily looked at Ethan. He looked back, and together, they nodded. They didn't speak much that night. There wasn't much left to say. Lily stood at the window of the apartment, watching the skyline glitter in the dark. Ethan joined her, slipping an arm gently around her waist. "You're not just someone I helped once," he said. "You're someone I need now." Lily turned toward him, eyes tired but shining. "I've never needed anyone. Until you. And for once there was no distance. No doubt. No uncertainty. He kissed her. Slow, deep, steady. Like someone anchoring himself to the one thing still holding. But outside, in the shadows, a storm was forming. Russell King had caught wind of the leak. His legal team was scrambling, his office shredded, his assets already shifting overseas. But his pride, still intact. He wasn't going down quietly. That night, a message arrived in Ethan's inbox. No sender, no subject, just one line. You brought her into this. If she goes down, it's on you. The story broke at dawn. Nora's article hit every major news outlet within the hour. Corruption within Hayes Global, CFO Russell King implicated in multi-million-dollar charity fraud. She didn't hold back. The report was detailed, damning, and impossible to deny. It included statements, transaction trails, and, most powerful of all, Lily's anonymous testimony, presented not as gossip, but as a voice of courage from inside the system. By 9 a.m., the headlines had changed again. CEO clears name, applauds brave employee who sparked internal audit. Russell King disappeared that same morning, resigned before the board could fire him. Rumors swirled, frozen accounts, possible charges. But for Ethan, it didn't matter how Russell went down. What mattered was that he finally did. Lily sat at home, phone buzzing non-stop, news alerts, messages, congratulations from strangers. Hate too, faceless trolls who questioned her motives, her story, her role. She tried to ignore them, but it was hard not to feel exposed. Her daughter sat on the floor nearby, gnawing on a toy giraffe, unbothered by the weight of the world crashing in. Ethan arrived minutes later. He didn't say anything at first, just walked in and dropped his phone on the table. The screen still displayed dozens of missed calls. He looked at her. "We made it," he said softly. Lily didn't smile. Not yet. "Did we?" Ethan crossed the room and took her hand. "You took them down with the truth, and you never backed down. That matters more than the noise." She held his gaze. "I don't want to be someone's symbol. I just want a normal life, a safe life. I want that for you, too." She stepped into his arms, and this time she let herself breathe. The aftermath wasn't perfect. No fairy tale came instantly. There were investigations, interviews, company restructuring. But slowly, things began to settle. The public, it turned out, liked stories of redemption, especially when they were real. Lily was offered a permanent promotion, full benefits, leadership training, a path she never imagined for herself. She accepted it with one condition, that the company also launch a new truth fund, supporting whistleblowers and low-income workers brave enough to speak out. Ethan signed off on it immediately. Zoe returned to work, full of fire and joy, and became Lily's mentor. The baby started walking, and for the first time in years, Lily didn't count coins at checkout lanes. She counted possibilities. As for Ethan, he stayed, not just as CEO, but in her life, not hovering or taking over but showing up, quietly, consistently. As a man who'd found more meaning in that tiny apartment, with her and a child who once didn't have formula, than he ever had in skyscrapers and stock reports. One evening, weeks after the storm, they stood on a quiet rooftop as the sun dipped behind the buildings. "I have something for you," Ethan said. Lily raised an eyebrow. "If it's a new phone, I don't need it." He laughed, shaking his head. "It's not that." He handed her a small flat envelope. She opened it. Inside was a photo, framed, of her daughter, smiling, arms wide, wearing the little bear onesie from that first delivery. Below it, a handwritten note. "You changed our story. Now I want to write the rest of it with you." Lily covered her mouth with one hand, tears stinging her eyes. "I don't need grand gestures," she whispered. Ethan stepped closer. "Then let me just be yours. No spotlight, no title, just me." She nodded slowly. "I think you already are." 1 year later, Lily stood behind a podium, nervously gripping the sides, heart pounding as cameras flashed. The first annual Truth Fund Gala. She never imagined herself as a speaker, but tonight, she wasn't just telling her story. She was giving voice to others like her, the silenced, the scared, the overlooked. And when she finished, the applause wasn't polite, it was thunderous. In the front row, Ethan stood beside her daughter, now 2, clapping with tiny hands, her stuffed bear tucked under one arm. Lily stepped off the stage and into their arms. Together. Because what started with a message asking for baby formula became the formula for hope. The end. Now it's your turn. Have you ever trusted a stranger and had it change your life? Tell us in the comments. Your story might help someone who needs to hear it. Thanks for watching.